Next, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Teddy Cruz, who will talk about our new Blum UCSD Community Stations project. Teddy will do primarily the presentation, but the Blum Initiative on campus is a new resource to deepen UCSD's engagement in diverse and traditionally underserved communities in the San Diego and Tijuana region. And Teddy will say a little bit about the background of the initiative and what we're getting off the ground this year.
Great, thank you. Don't begin my 10 minutes yet. I just want to check something here. Okay. Obviously, we would have to begin the conversation by inserting this project and this initiative, just like the previous presentations, in the context of three urgencies in our campus. Obviously, how do we connect the university and the community in deeper and more productive ways? How do we advance new community-engaged undergraduate pedagogy to produce new synergies between research, teaching, and service? And finally, how do we infuse diversity in all aspects of UCSD life, engaging societal problems to produce new interdisciplinarity and experiential-based learning and research? The Blum at UCSD is a project and initiative that has been led by Fonna and I and many other partners that I will introduce briefly. As the Blum Center for Developing Economies at Berkeley that engages Africa and Asia primarily in terms of informality and poverty research and practice, opened up a request for proposals to build partners across the UC system. We were lucky to, in fact, get one of those, that funding, arguing, in fact, that we are very lucky to be located here, obviously, in this geography. We elevated the notion that we need to localize the global, that poverty is here, in fact, not there. Engaging the specificity, the kind of reality of underrepresented neighborhoods here across the border as sites for new research and innovation. They were compelled by the fact that we could send in the morning a student to one of the informal settlements in Tijuana to do field work, and in the afternoon that student is here researching and elevating a scholarship and theory. So obviously this region, which is defined by inequality, is fundamental. No other place in the world you can find some of the wealthiest real estate in the edges of San Diego, barely 20 minutes away from some of the poorest settlements in Latin America. And it is this what produces a context for UCSD to commit to a new era of engagement of its own locality and rethinking the role, obviously, of the public university in mediating the gap that has been perpetuated in recent years between cultural institutions and communities. Our beginning in this proposal had to do with simply elevating what we are doing very well already in our campus and trying to really recognize each other. Can we, in fact, identify what already exists here as a point of departure? The Blum Initiative really was an excuse to form a coalition of a few initiatives, centers, professors that are working on these issues through the Center on Global Justice, through the Center for Urban Ecology that I lead, and the Visual Arts, Urban Studies and Planning Program through Keith Pezzoli, the Division of Global Public Health through Steph Strafty, and CAL-IT2 under the leadership of Ramesh Rao. This coalition consolidated the UC Blum Center proposal, and the central project for this project became the UCSD Community Stations. This project in itself, which I will explain very briefly and broadly, becomes a framework, a platform, really, to synergize the different practica across campus by connecting those practica to the specificity of a variety of marginalized zones of poverty communities across the border. These community stations elevates and reorganizes and summons, really, projects that have been ongoing for the last 15, 20 years. Some of those projects under the leadership of somebody like Mike Cole or Bob Mehan, obviously PhD students such as Robert Lecusay, Ivan Rosero, professors Angela Booker, etc. There are 3 community stations that compose the system: the Green Steam Community Station, the Earth Lab Community Station, and the Cross-Border Community Station. I wanted to focus on the fact that, in fact, this system is simply forming a corridor of knowledge exchange linking the specialized knowledge of UCSD with the community-based knowledge embedded in marginal neighborhoods. It's really about a kind of two-directional system. It's not only about going there, but actually enabling the knowledge of the community to enter into our institutions, to reorganize new forms of pedagogy and research. It's important to amplify here that when we speak of socioeconomic justice, we have to talk about not only the redistribution of resources, but also the redistribution of knowledges. It is, in fact, the knowledge embedded in community that we're interested. Obviously, NGOs, community-based practices that have resources in these neighborhoods that are very specifically engaging issues. They have spaces as field-based laboratories. These community agencies serve as mediators and local facilitators. They summon the community. They engage and elevate public participation. They, in fact, activate the socioeconomic and political knowledge on the ground as devices for students to partner with. They present to us real-world challenges in their environment to contextualize learning and research. They present us also with past projects and the track record to measure assessment and performance across time. They, in fact, open opportunities for research and funding grants and partnerships. Casa Familiar in San Isidro recently won a grant to measure pollution at the checkpoint, and we linked that grant with a researcher at Cal IT2, and this sort of pairing of needs and urgencies inside neighborhoods with the research we are doing here to collaborate in getting more funding and resources. And finally, they become the perfect devices and channels for policy making, a transformation of a kind of civic imagination. UCSD research-based knowledge, we all know it here. I shouldn't really talk about that, but really at times we don't recognize each other. There are a variety of entities and initiatives across campus that really need to be summoned in order to enable these projects and these aspirations. So it's this relationship, this university-community partnership that we are talking about here. It's about the co-production of research and pedagogy between neighborhoods and UCSD to produce a variety of programs that will be the device, the kind of platform from this community stations project. This is the framework that we wanted to present as a platform. So again, the common features are basically that for each of these community stations, there is a partnership with a coordinated group of community-based organizations. It's about co-production, co-curation, and co-management of these projects. Each is committed to the principle of reciprocal knowledge production. Each provides unique educational opportunities for experience-based undergraduate research. Each works on the model of financial mutuality. Communities contribute, in fact, resources to this partnership. Each focuses on different aspects of diversity, disciplinarity, demographic, generational, and geographic, and according to many other criteria. And finally, each is complementary with a variety of outreach programs across the campus that would have to be summoned as this develops. I wanted to end with showing, obviously, that this is about the specificity of the geographic location of these neighborhoods. UCSD in northern San Diego, and these neighborhoods in southeast San Diego in the south, where these stations are located, producing this sort of corridor of knowledge exchange, this circulation of resources and knowledges. The Earth Lab Community Stations, which is the same framework for all of them, has built throughout the years partnerships with a variety of entities on the ground that are really summoned in these neighborhoods. And this coalition of existing community-based practices and institutions are linked with a variety of programs, academic and in research, here in UCSD, producing the station itself. Again, to produce content, to co-produce content. The Earth Lab Community Stations focuses on eco-literacy, issues of environmental sustainability. The Green STEAM Community Station, led by Mike Cole. The previous is led by Bob Mehan. This one is by Mike Cole. In the same manner, they have constructed a coalition of entities with whom they have been partnering, and this produces, again, with our coalition inside UCSD, the Green STEAM Community Station, focusing on issues of informal learning, social technology, etc., and the cross-border community stations, which bring together, this is the project that Fonna Forman and I are leading, that connect to San Isidro to the north, is the first immigrant neighborhood into the United States, and to the south, Laureles Canyon, home to 85,000 people, the last slum of Latin America crashing against the border. These two neighborhoods become the laboratories for this station, partnering with Casa Familiar, an entity that really works across a variety of issues from citizenship, immigration, housing, and public space crisis, to Alter Terra in this informal settlement dealing with issues of environmental degradation, social organization, etc. These two entities across the border are brought together to form the cross-border community stations. We have begun already a variety of programming supported by CAL-IT2-based technology. That OptiPortable that you see to the top has enabled this community and our partners to co-design workshops with communities to use visualization and visual literacy to enable communities to have access to urban policy issues, etc., linking this to neighborhoods. Obviously, the slum in Tijuana is one of the most amazing sights to see how Tijuana builds itself with the waste of San Diego. This is strategies of recycling in San Diego. San Isidro becomes an example of environments where immigrants have a role in transforming urban policy. Finally, the Blum campus public goods. We took the advantage of getting this resource from Blum to not only develop and elevate the community stations projects, but also produce a variety of instruments campus-wide. We're working with 5 main pieces. The visualization of community engaged efforts. We needed to begin by summoning other entities, other initiatives that are working with the same type of criteria in partnering with these entities in neighborhoods. A community engaged curriculum committee and reader. We are summoning a committee across sectors in the campus also to produce a reader that can really bring together a variety of topics from ethics of engagement to science and technology to visual arts, humanities, etc., having to do with community engaged scholarship. Blum undergraduate stipends, a civic engagement units program, which will provide certificates to students that can go to places in Tijuana, San Diego, where a civic policy with urban policy is being shaped, so students will get credits for being part of that process. And finally, the public scholarship program, which will finally enable us, supported by the Superfund Research Center and Keith Pezzoli, 2 activists from these communities in San Isidro, Andreas Corepa. They will come here in the spring, the Public Scholar Award, so that these community leaders come into the campus to co-produce with us the content for this program. Many times we go to the communities, but these communities never really come to the campus to really interact with us. So this program links activists with the scholars to co-teach and develop these programs. Thank you very much.
So that was dense. So we'll take questions related to this project in the last part. But the Blum Initiative on campus is a new resource to deepen UCSD's engagement in diverse and traditionally underserved communities in the San Diego and Tijuana region. And Teddy will say a little bit about the background of the initiative and what we're getting off the ground this year. Next, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Teddy Cruz, who will talk about our new Blum UCSD Community Stations project. Teddy will do primarily the presentation.
In the community in deeper and more productive ways. How do we advance new community-engaged undergraduate pedagogy to produce new synergies between research, teaching, and service? And finally, how do we infuse diversity in all aspects of UCSD life, engaging societal problems to produce new interdisciplinarity and experiential-based learning and research? The Blum at UCSD is a project and initiative that has been led by Fonna and I and many other partners that I will introduce briefly, as the Blum Center for Developing Economies at Berkeley that engages Africa and Asia. Right. Thank you. Don't begin my 10 minutes yet. I just want to check something here. Okay. Obviously, we would have to begin the conversation by inserting this project and this initiative, just like the previous presentations, in the context of 3 urgencies in our campus. Obviously, how do we connect the university